Hello and welcome to Science Center, where we bring you the best stories of biotechnology and medicine. As always, I'm your host, Jonathan Song, and today I've planned to take you guys all on a trip back in time to a special segment called Malaria Matters. Recently, I picked up this masterpiece by Miss Karen Masterson about malaria, and this book discusses the history of malaria and the path to developing treatments. So here is Miss Masterson today. Everybody welcome Karen. Hello, it's so nice to have you.
Nice to be here today. So this is my book, The Malaria Project. It's a personalized signed copy for you.
Thank you so much. And every one of you in the audience will be getting a signed copy of The Malaria Project today.
My pleasure. So thank you, Jonathan, for having me on the show. I'm really excited about sharing my new book with everyone. And also I'm really excited about telling everyone about malaria.
So to start off our show, I just wanted to ask you to briefly summarize this book for those who haven't read it yet.
Of course. Well, you all should be reading it soon because it's getting a signed copy by me. But the Malaria Project is a story about the U.S. government's secret mission to find a miraculous cure to malaria. It tracks the progression and development of treatment, and starting from the early 1900s, and it follows the life of key leaders in the initiative, such as the Austrian psychiatrist Julius Wagner-Pauric and the American physician Lowell T. Cogshell. Since the history of malaria is so closely tied with the history of war and the wars surrounding what the United States had, I also include a lot of history about how the war efforts worked with the malaria efforts, and how nations essentially entered into an arms race to end malaria and to rid the world of it, especially for their soldiers.
Absolutely fascinating. I love how this is a perfect blend of history, science, social science even, and it's a perfect book for everyone. So, now that we have some background on this book, could you actually discuss the scientific facts and basis for malaria and how it can be transmitted?
Of course. Well, researching for my book has really given me a strong foundation in the history of malaria and when it started, how many countries have had it, etc., etc. And also, I have a pretty good understanding of its treatments, but since I'm not a malaria expert, I've never researched malaria in my life, and it's just I researched the history behind it because I was so intrigued by the impact that it's had on the world. Actual science behind it, I've always gotten expert opinions on it. So I think I should probably call one of my friends, Mr. Gupta. He's an expert in the field of malaria, and which I'm definitely not. And I think that he will do a really good job in conveying to the viewers about what the actual disease is.
So go ahead, pick up the phone and call. We have time for that on our segment today.
Oh, awesome. Hi, Jay. Yeah, thanks for taking my call. So I'm actually on the set with Johnson Song from Science Center. Yeah, he's doing a segment on malaria. And we were wondering if you'd be able to maybe provide us with a bit of background on the viewers. For the viewers? Yes, sorry. Whoops. Yeah, you always correct my English too. For the viewers on the disease. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
I'd be happy to help. Essentially, malaria is caused by the transmission of a small parasite into a person's body by a female Anopheles mosquito. All of these parasites are members of the Plasmodium genus. There are 5 capable of infecting humans: Falciparum, the most dangerous, Vivax, Oval, Nullici, and Malariae. When a mosquito carrying one of these parasites bites you, just 5 of the deadly microbes are transmitted into your body. Within 30 minutes, they find their way into the liver. For about a week, they remain here, protected from the immune system, and multiply to over 30,000 liver-stage germs. After this point, they burst out and enter the blood stage. By manipulating a receptor protein called Duffy, they enter our red blood cells, degrade the hemoglobin, and remove the iron as waste. Then, they multiply more. By this time, white blood cells are struggling to remove all of the toxic waste contaminating our bloodstream. The parasites don't stop their attacks. They keep working until they trigger a violent immune response.
That sounds so terrible. What kind of symptoms do we notice?
Progress to high fevers, thirst, headaches, nausea, stomach aches, and vomiting. Eventually, your body begins to sweat profusely, leading you into delirium.
So what was the final product of the Malaria Project?
So the final product towards the end of World War II was the drug chloroquine, which has been used since then to effectively treat malaria patients, except now there's increasing resistance, but that's not really focused on in the book. Basically what I focus on is the whole development process of finding a viable cure.
So what is that process?
So the process is basically how you have an idea, and then you test that idea using different compounds. So in the beginning they talk about how they use different plants to find a cure. They talk about quinine. They talk about modifying the chemical structure of quinine
from the quinchua plant.
Exactly. From when they found it, then they tested its like chemical properties, and then they modified those to find the sulfadoxine and then pyrimethamine, and then they continued that until finally they changed around some R groups on that organic compound, and they found chloroquine.
So then, what other drugs have been developed?
So after chloroquine, they developed artemisinin, which is another plant-based product, and now it's in a combination therapy, but it's also developing resistance, which is a huge problem. But the whole overall drug developing process has been completely revolutionized by this discovery of chloroquine, because the whole process was how they had the idea, they developed it, they had a lead compound, they changed the chemical structure, then they tested it in vitro and in vivo, which is in plants and in test tubes and in animals, and how I mentioned in the book, they tested in monkeys, and then
birds too.
Exactly, and then afterwards we tested if it works in monkeys, then we tested in humans, and that's really important because we need to monitor all the side effects, etc., etc. So that's phase 1. In phase 2, we tested in a larger population, and in phase 3 of clinical trials, we go completely global. Anyone who wants the drug can take it, and the end step is registration, where we have to get all the approvals.
So if all these drugs have been developed, right, and admittedly they have gained resistance, but how come malaria hasn't been totally eradicated from the planet?
Well, the reason it was eliminated from the United States is because of so many companies coming together, leading propaganda campaigns. Disney had a huge campaign. So basically money. Money is what eliminates diseases and eradicates diseases. So the reason that malaria has not been eradicated yet is because of funding issues. And there have been so many viable cures, but the thing is that people aren't educated enough to know how to use those cures. They don't know all the nuances behind them. And also, the funding gap between funding for malaria and no funding for malaria is so huge that even if there's so much effort being put in to develop a cure, it isn't enough.
Right, so we can see how not just biotechnological innovations affect the process of developing a end-all solution for malaria, and other factors like social setting and funding. All
Exactly.
factors.
And we also talk about lots of ethical issues in the book. Like I don't know if you remember, but I talked about how Pauric used malaria to treat syphilis patients, like how treating a disease with another disease.
Right.
So let's hear a little bit about Pauric now.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Hello, I'm Dr. Pauric, the pioneer of fever therapy. As a psychiatrist, much of my work revolved around the care of patients with syphilis. I was determined, however, to find a way to actually cure this disease because I believed that mental conditions resulted from physiological changes that could be reversed. I hypothesized that inducing fevers would be able to save my patients who are suffering from neurosyphilis. Malaria would be a strong candidate to do this because it could be controlled by quinine. So, I drew a blood sample from a soldier with malaria and injected it into a few of my patients. Miraculously, I was able to fully cure 2 of them. Eventually, I went on to become a Nobel laureate, and I'm often referred to as the grandfather of psychiatry.
So is there any final comments you'd like to make to the audience?
Just that I want everyone to know that just because malaria isn't happening in the United States, that doesn't mean that it's not happening anywhere, and that doesn't mean that it's been such a scourge to humanity.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Masterson, for coming in and discussing this book, and I hope the audience enjoys the signed copies that they will all be receiving. Once again, this is Ms. Karen Masterson, everyone, and now we will cut to a commercial.
You have malaria, which is a disease caused by the anopheles. When it bites you, it cuts you, it sucks your blood, and the saliva infects you, infects your blood. The plasmodium is living in the liver, having its dinner. It will burst, it will burst, it will burst! Infecting your red blood cells, paramount to a gel. Toxins will produce fever, rashes, and chills, and perhaps what? Maybe even kill. This was the means of infection. Now to Johnson to talk about treatment and prevention.
Malaria has no cure, so you're basically gonna die. Haha, just kidding. There are some ways to stay alive. To prevent it, wear covered clothing and make sure you ain't exposing those parts of you that are delighting, exciting. What?
What?
The bug bite is such a fright and starts it all late in the night. You get fever, rash, and chills.
Fever, rash, and chills.
So don't forget to take your pills. Nausea, heartburn, indigestion, but that's not really the symptom. Wait, is it something in my feet?
Come on, dude. Try and stay with the beat. Stay to the words on the sheet. The worst of all is no trip to the mall. You can die when it's in your brain, but the death would be such a great shame. Now that these are the symptoms that you will feel, this is what happens in your body for real. The plasmodium reproduces asexually, then it will burst eventually. It grows rapidly, quickly, and fast. The more nutrition, the longer it'll last. The little thing can grow oh so much, with lots of energy and a little bit of luck.
Luck.
We've heard enough about this organism, now let's hear about its morphisms. You might be wondering where it resists, so now we're going to tell you it exists.
Not saying, not playing, malaria is one of the oldest diseases to affect mankind. We are telling the truth, don't think we're out of our minds. In the 20th century, mortality rates dropped. But who knows when malaria will actually be stopped? Sorry for the history, but if we didn't say it, it would be a mystery. But if I got malaria, would I die?
It's hard to say, Johnny, so I'm not gonna lie. The drugs will help you unless they're resistant. The disease is highly persistent, and if not treated, malaria might cause deaths, and half the people it infects. This is prognosis if you're alive or dead. Johnny's gonna tell you some interesting facts ahead.
Mala means bad, and area means air. So now you have the word malaria there.
So that's our presentation. That's it. That's all. We hoped you liked it because we had a ball. To Dr. Burnette, we hope you liked the song. We also hope that it wasn't too long. We know you know the last letter of malaria, so we hope we get that grade without hysteria. Malaria!
By asking you to briefly summarize the plot of this book. Oh.
Jay Gupta!
Jay, is it Jay? I'm gonna like the liquor fright and starts it all late in the night.
That's you.
You get fever, rash, and chills, fever.
Burst.
Oh
It
no,
will
this
burst.
messed
It
up.
will burst. Johnson!
Oh, I got lost. Okay, this is so. And in a crock pot.
Ah, yes!
Yes. Bye.